Hey everybody, after several months of waiting and a few false starts, my Rollei 35 AF is here and I've shot a few rolls of film through it, so let's get to it. Let me tell you all about it. The whole story started September of last year when Mint finally opened the pre-orders for the Rollei 35 AF, and then October came when they were supposed to be delivered, and nothing. Then November. They'll be delivered by December. Well, then December came, then January, then February, then March. Then mine finally arrived in April, a beautiful black Rollei 35 AF. And I went out and shot 3 frames, and it died. Something inside locked up. I couldn't cock the shutter the right way. It was doing double frames, things like that. So then I sent it back to Mint. Along about June, I finally received the replacement camera, this one. And I opened it up and I looked. It wasn't a black one, it was a silver one. Well, that's cool. Let me go shooting. And I shot a couple rolls, had a great time. And then a week later, another box showed up from Mint. This time it was a black one. I said, wait a minute, why do I have 2 of them? Well, certainly I wasn't going to benefit from their mistake. So I contacted them and they said, oh, yeah, no, not a problem. Just send the one you don't want back and we'll make it all good. And so it turns out I actually preferred the look of the silver camera over the black one. So I shipped them the black one untouched and retained the silver one, the one I had already shot a few rolls through, and everybody was happy. They refunded the difference in the price and they refunded my shipping. All was good. So here is the new camera. This is the Rollei 35 AF. Right there. It looks fantastic. It's very true to the original Rollei 35. In fact, this is a made in Germany Rollei 35 camera, and here is the Rollei 35 AF. You can see the family resemblance is strong. The biggest difference between these two is the size. You'll see that it's just about maybe 10% larger in all dimensions. This camera really looks like it's the descendant of the original Rollei 35. It looks like exactly what you'd expect of a mid-90s version of the Rollei 35 with, after some modifications and lightening because it's made out of plastic in certain areas that used to be metal, and updates with electronics and things like that. But the soul of the camera is still there. Let me show you the differences, the major differences. Really, it's the weight. This one is substantially lighter. And it, again, because the original Rollei 35 cameras were pretty much solid metal bricks. It's a small thing. Well, see that? The original is very small. The next one looks chunky compared to it. But when I take the original away, the new one still is a pretty small camera. The controls are very similar, and I'm happy about that. You look like on the top, and you'll see they've got the same controls with the modernization of there's a power switch, there's the shutter release, there's no lens collapsing button like this one has. This little button here is what you press to collapse the lens. And there's no light meter on the top because that's not necessary. You're not using a light meter with this camera. It is auto exposure. The front of the cameras, very similar. You see the same 2 wheels. There's the aperture on the camera's right when you're viewing it as a photographer. Then you look on the other side and you see the shutter speed wheel. Both of these are identical in the sense that you look down at them. This is the new one. In fact, I'm just going to show you right here. You look down and you'll see the numbers printed on the edge, and you're supposed to look kind of like this through the camera and dial these in, just like that. On the original, you'll see there's a little metal tab right down here. And you have to press that little metal tab to release the aperture dial. And they have put the very same little metal tab on the new one. You might not notice that's there, and you might mess your camera up if you're not careful. They have also included, you'll see these little spinners in the center. On one side, you've got the film format, and the other side, frames. These are just spinners. They do nothing. In fact, they spin freely, so they're, in my mind, they're pointless. Lest you think that Mint has made a lame camera with these dumb little features, the original had the same thing. There's a little spinner here where you put your, whether it's black and white or slide film or something. On the other side, though, in the wheel that is the aperture adjustment, you'll see the ISO selector. So this one's functional, but on the new camera, look here, and you'll see this non-functional dumb little spinner. It keeps the camera from looking weird. ISO is selected by either using the DX encoding on the film canister itself. Here's one. That's the DX encoding, and that's what tells a camera the film speed. Inside of a camera that uses DX encoding, you'll find these little metal contacts that will touch the back side of the film canister and detect that this is indeed a roll of 36 exposures of 400 film. I bulk load, and so a lot of the rolls of film that I have the wrong DX encoding on them because I just grabbed some random roll like this. Maybe I put 100 speed film in it. Not a problem. There's actually a position on the power dial here for ISO, and you put it on ISO, and you press this little button on the front, and that will cycle through the ISO options, and you can set to whatever you really want. Don't forget to do that, though. It's important because you're going to be shooting with the wrong ISO if your roll of film is lying. I've heard online a lot of complaints about the fit and finish of the Rollei 35 AF, and people have, I think, forgotten to remove their rose-colored glasses when they're looking at the OG, the Rollei 35. They talk about the back being very difficult to remove and replace, and it turns out that the back on the original, and I have two of them, the back on these original Rollei 35 cameras was just as difficult to remove and replace until they were used for quite a bit. They would take some time to work in, but there's a little lever. This is the old original camera, little lever that you flip, and you slide the back off like that. And then when you go to replace it, you have to engage the rails here, get everything lined up, and you slide it back. And then you have to make sure that the edges don't catch. You have to fiddle, and tweak and get it to click into place. Make sure that this edge here is engaged and then lock it. It's no different on a new one. Flip the little lock, slide the back off, engage the rails, slide it back in place, make sure that the edges are all lined up, make sure the top you may need to press a little bit, and then now flip the little lever. They work the same. They're just as fiddly. These cameras were such a faff to work with. In order to shoot a photo, you had to pull the lens out, click it in place, then you would look at your subject and you would dial in your desired aperture, dial in your shutter speed while looking at the light meter on the top, get everything okay. Now, Guess how far they are from you because there's no focus aid on this camera. Let's just say 20 feet. And you dial that in on the lens, hoping you got it right. Look through the very rudimentary viewfinder and take the shot. And when you're done, you have to cock the shutter one more time. Press this little button on top. Unlock the lens. Press it back inside. And now you can put the camera away. Mint has made a camera that gets very close to the same amount of Faff. And it's fun. You use this camera by you turn it on, you choose your aperture, same way. You dialing in an aperture. You can choose a shutter speed if you want, but they have added an auto mode, which is really cool. They have A for auto, and then they have +1, +2, -1, -2 for exposure compensation. So this is an auto exposure camera. Really neat. If you want, you can do manual. You can turn this all the way around and get your shutter speeds. But I leave it on auto. It's enough trouble as it is working with all the other features. The lens itself, there's no adjustment for focus. This is an autofocus camera. This uses LiDAR, and it goes this little thing up the front here. That is how you're going to focus. Focus was hit or miss. If there's a tree branch that's between you and the subject, it's going to focus on the tree branch. But if you wanted to focus on a tree branch, it's going to focus somewhere in the distance. It has every bit the joy of autofocus from 1990s point and shoot cameras. They have replicated that to a T. And you'll see we have the power switch, and you select flash, no flash, ISO selecting mode, which it's just for selecting the ISO. Once you've selected it, you can flip it back to one of the other modes and then power off. You want to make sure you always turn the power off, because I don't know if you're ever going to be able to change the battery on this. More on that later. They have replicated the original cocking lever so well. There are people who online have made comments about the cocking lever feeling flimsy or something like that, or feeling rough. They're identical. In fact, when I measure them, it turns out that the lever, the aluminum the lever is made out of, about 40 thousandths of an inch thick on the original, and about 40 thousandths of an inch thick on the new one. All the way to the front and shoot. Flip all the way to the front. Shoot. They are so close to being identical. Other aspects of using this camera, they've modernized by adding a flash, which is nice if you like flash photography. Not a fan of it, but if you do want to do flash photography, it's right there, and you just flip the switch into the flash position. The original Rollei 35, in all of its quirkiness, did support flash in a very awkward way. Here's the camera. This is the 35T, and you look, there is a hot shoe on the bottom. See that? Why would you put it on the bottom? Well, that's because that's the only place they could put it, and this is the flash that you would use. So that is the gorgeous Rollei flash. Slide it in place, and now you look dorky as you try to take a picture with the flash dangling off the bottom. Don't do that, because you're going to make your subject look like Frankenstein. So what you should do is take your Rollei 35 and invert it, and take the photo this way with the camera turned upside down, and it'll work just fine. The new one has completely done away with that. There's no shoe on here at all, which means you're not going to be able to attach accessories or anything like that. Since it has a flash built in, it's not a big deal. It's not going to affect anything, but just keep that in mind if you're expecting to attach some accessory. Something else that the Rollei 35 AF has in common with the original is a terrible lens cap. This thing is useless. In fact, I don't bother carrying it with me. One of the things I didn't like about this lens is that it doesn't have filter threads. You cannot put filters on this camera. The original actually has very small filter threads on it. The filters are very tiny, but you can put them on. With this camera, you cannot put an ND filter or any other filter on it. I can't put like a red filter for black and white photography. There is no way to attach filters. Surely you can come up with some kind of 3D printed thing that'll fit around the lip on this lens, but that's not quite as satisfying as having a proper filter thread on a lens. So it's a shame they didn't add that. Let's load this camera. Flip the little locking lever on the bottom. Then I brace my thumbs against the lens as I use my fingers to slide the back off. May take a little persuasion the first time. Set it somewhere where it's not going to get damaged. Flip down the pressure plate. Grab your roll of film. Insert the film in the right side, just like the original. Pull the tongue of the film across and you'll see those little arrows which tell you where to insert the film, and it fits under like a little spring steel edge there, and you'll notice that the film eventually comes out the other side. Give it a crank and you'll see the film get wrapped under. See that? You want to make sure that it doesn't come off the spool. Flip the pressure plate up. Make sure everything's smoothed into place. And shoot a blank frame and give it a crank. Again, watch and make sure everything's moving. Now you can put the back on. Be careful to get the edges of the back in the little rails. And now you're going to use your fingers to make sure that all the edges line up so nothing catches. There we go. Flip the latch. The camera's loaded. Shoot another blank frame or two and you should be ready to go. You'll know you're ready when the counter shows 1. And you can see the frame number just by half pressing. It should, there, on the first frame. I guarantee you that if you used one of these old ones, you could pick up the new one and load it and shoot it right away without any special knowledge. They are identical in the loading and the shooting. Works the same way. The lens is different from the original. This is the original camera, the original Rollei 35, and it has a 40mm lens. The modern Rollei 35 AF has a 35mm lens. 35mm is a bit more of a modern focal length for a camera like this. 35 is great. That's the one we're used to when we go out shooting with a point-and-shoot camera. It'll be very familiar to everybody. And the lens quality, very good. Goes to f2.8. And I'm not a lens quality kind of person. I can't tell you about the sharpness or anything like that. My photos are done in grainy Ilford HP5 Plus, and I wouldn't be able to tell you a thing about the actual lens quality, but other people have said it's a very good lens, and I tend to agree with them. I'm going to show you some of my photos and let you see for yourself if you like them. I shot these on HP 5 Plus, the grainiest film I own. This is my very first photo I shot with the original camera, and I like it. This is my wife's plant on the dining room table, and you can see the background is blurred nicely. It's a nice photo, and so is this one. You could see I focused on the vase, and everything else is slightly out of focus. This is where things went off the rails. You could see the double exposure where I shot a photo and said, I don't know if the camera advanced. Let me try again. And so I got a double exposure. Then the camera behaved, and I got this cool shot at the park of these trees in this pond. 2 months later, we have the new camera. I'm going to pause on this one just to show you one of the issues that I ran into with this roll was you could see that white scratch going down the film from left to right about a quarter of the way up. And that was a scratch on the back of the film. It's not on the emulsion. It's actually on the plastic side of the film. And I think that was from some dust that was trapped by the pressure plate against the back of the film. I checked the pressure plate afterwards, and I checked everything. There was nothing rough. It was all perfectly smooth. So there must have been a little piece of debris in there that caused that scratch. But you can see the next photo as well. Again, nothing to write home about, but you can see this one has the scratch going vertical because, of course, I changed to the vertical alignment. A few days later, I went out to shoot another roll. This time was T-Max 400, and there's no scratch, and it worked just fine. The steps going up to the train station, a cool sculpture at the train station, some random guy checking his text messages on the roof of the train station, passengers waiting for the train to New York, and then these neat sculptures which are nearby. I really enjoyed shooting with this camera. It's elegant, it looks great, and the photos are pretty good. At some point, as you're shooting, you're going to go to cock the shutter, and the lever is going to stop halfway, and you're done. So let's unload the camera. First thing you want to do is flip the rewind lever next to the viewfinder into the up position. This will release the sprocket and let it freewheel. Now unfold the rewind crank and turn it in the direction of the arrow. I found this to be very stiff. It took serious effort for me to rewind those rolls of film I shot. I think this will loosen up with time. It made it very easy for me to figure out when the film came off the spool so I could leave the tongue hanging out. Now, remember to flip the rewind lever back down. Unlock the back, brace the thumbs, slide the back off. Set it aside. Flip down the pressure plate. Take out the film. If you look on the right side, you can see the contacts I was telling you about for the DX encoding. Now let's put it all back together. Nudge, squeeze, fiddle, fiddle. Make sure you check that that gap is all the way closed. If you can fit a thumbnail in there, it's not closed. Flip the latch and turn the power off. The biggest flaw in this camera, in my opinion, is the battery door. The problem with this door is that it's very thin aluminum and it opens that far. That's it. The battery itself, there's a little fingernail catch in the top where you can reach in. But the battery doesn't come out. It's too long. You can't get it out. It needs to come straight out, not flipped out. But when you're trying to pry it out, what's going to happen? And I guarantee this is going to happen if you're not super careful. You're going to accidentally bump into this door and you're going to bend it. This is almost impossible to get out, this battery. There's no way squeezing it or anything to get it to actually flip out. Oh, son of a gun. I can't believe I got the battery out. You want to set it in there very gently, not quite flat, but on a bit of an angle like that, and then it'll pop in. So that's the biggest defect of the camera. Otherwise, everything else matches. It's very attractive, very smooth. All the controls work the same. It's a beautiful camera. You shoot the Rollei because you want to. It's stylish, it's quirky, it's fiddly, just like the original. It's not your everyday camera, but it is a looker. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. Would I recommend it? As long as you know what you're signing up for. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching. Now go out and shoot a roll.